Hey everybody, welcome to Heroes Out. I am Patrick.
And I'm Paul. How's it going?
Pretty good, my friend. We're going to talk about one of the hardest things to do in TV, and that is make a comedy that's also dark, heavy, and serious at its core. What its main conceit is, what its central premise is, what its underlying theme or its entire bottom end of story or plot might be something really not traditionally funny, but making people laugh. Yeah, comedies that dealt with some seriously heavy stuff. And we're going to tell you 5 of them.
Five.
And Paul, let's start with The Good Place. The Good Place is giving a quick synopsis of The Good Place is kind of hard, but also kind of easy.
Yeah.
We're not going to give away any spoilers for any of these shows as best as we can. Mild spoiler warning for some things will inevitably happen. But The Good Place, you can get from a trailer that it's actually about heaven and hell. The good place is supposed to be heaven. The bad place would be hell. And our main character, played by Kristen Bell, goes to the good place. But Paul, there's a clerical error that she realizes on her first day that it's not actually her, it's supposed to be someone else.
Yeah. She was meant to go to the bad place, and she's now in the good place, and she's kind of like, trying to play it up, trying to keep herself there as much as possible, kind of thing. Which is an interesting kind of concept for a show dealing with death and kind of a wider kind of like spirituality element to it. Is kind of a moral choice at its core. Saying, hey, I'm not meant to be here, or I'm staying here and I'm going to try as hardest as I possibly can to trick everybody into me staying here.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. So that's the setup for the show. You're actually dead. It doesn't get kind of more serious than that. Well, it does if you're the good place, because they bring, and by that initial setup, it's essentially a show about moral philosophy. So much so that the cast is on screen now, Paul. One of the main characters that Kristen Bell meets is a moral philosopher. She meets a crazy cast of characters. In the top half is let's say the dead people who are working their way around the good place and end up becoming friends. And then there are the people running the good place. They're played by Ted Danson, with the amazing sidekick of Janet, technically Janet the AI, I think they refer to her as, even though it's in the good place. So she's like a Siri
Celestial.
or an Alexa or whatever, and that's her role. She's this incredible encyclopedia. I have to be careful the way I said Alexa there, everybody, in case you haven't worked it out.
Yeah, everybody's Alexa starts going off.
Yeah.
It's like Google Assistant or something like that. But so it goes with a lot of moral quandaries of, as you said, kind of self philosophy and spirituality and stuff like that. So it has a lot of questions of like, what is morally good and what's morally bad, and morality tends to be a very kind of like up in the air kind of element. But they do it in this kind of comedy way of like characters bumbling into answers of these kind of things, while being slowly directed towards maybe the right or wrong answer with their friends.
Yeah. And Paul, again, no spoilers, so we can't really go into it. But suffice it to say, not everything as it seems. So where's the comedy in something like this? The comedy is in, somebody trying to con their way to stay in heaven. The comedy is in all of the different characters that they're meeting in this good place. But then there's another layer of comedy of, what does a good place look like? The idea of what heaven is different to everyone. So the idea that there's a good place where everybody can mingle, that poses its own challenges. And, you've got lasagna shops, and you've got, every flavor under the sun, ice cream shops, and everything is amazing. But there's way, way more to the show. And Paul, I'm rating this as probably the most odd but ambitious, very much laugh out loud comedy TV show that subtly is teaching you about the great philosophers. It's a fairly niche market, but I think they have it cornered.
Yeah. The comedy element in this is a little bit higher than probably some of our other ones, as in more goofy comedy, I think,
Exactly.
than some of the other ones, which is great. But yeah, it also takes on one of the more loftier kind of like highbrow, um, kind of deeper questions about life and death and grief and moral kind of choices and spirituality.
That's it. And that is The Good Place. And next up is Afterlife. Ricky Gervais. A lot of people have guessed that Afterlife, anybody who's seen it will have guessed that Afterlife was going to be on this list. But also, Ricky Gervais, if you know of him, he is a comedian with a dark sense of humor at the best of times. So he definitely is going to have come up with one of these shows. Paul, Afterlife, in a sentence, I'm going to say it's about a guy who's lost his wife to a horrible, horrible disease. You know, it opens with him watching her speak to him because she knew she was going to pass away on a laptop. You get a real sense for their love for each other, but you get a real sense for the main premise of the show is somebody dealing with grief and whether or not they can go on.
Yeah, this is probably one of the heavier kind of, I guess, subject matters of a comedy that we have on our list, kind of thing. Yeah, it definitely deals with grief and loss. It then like it then deals with kind of the human condition of what would happen after that kind of thing, and then the choices that we make when those things have taken over our life, which is and a little bit of the resilience of hope, I guess, a little like that, and how important kindness and compassion is in these kind of situations from outside sources, maybe.
Well, that's it. And to say this, it is dealing with the idea of how do you continue, and maybe the idea that you don't want to means that you have to find comedy in that by having other characters as well. And the other characters that he comes or he's written in and comes across are truly wacky, zany, brilliant, and idiots in equal measure. There's Postman Pat, who is a laughable character who you don't know why that character's there other than to antagonize our main character. But it's true things like that you see that mirror of humanity being shown, and that maybe it's not about everything being perfect to continue on, but sometimes it's actually to see what happens next and be with these, be the human condition is why you continue on. And I think the ensemble around him, the side characters, none of them are given that much more prominence than any of the rest. This is definitely a starring the main character that Ricky Gervais is playing. But I think it's done so beautifully and so delicately that you are laughing without any guilt. This is a guy who doesn't give a crap anymore. So he's saying exactly what he thinks. Sometimes he's saying exactly what you would want to say in these situations, but out of politeness, you wouldn't. He's not too worried about tomorrow at the time, so he'll say anything. That can lead to laughs. But the side characters lead to situations that make the laughs inevitable.
Yeah, the side characters are very good in the sense that they all have their own issues as well. That
Exactly.
there's no one who's just perfect, kind of thing. But it's all kind of, I guess, on a scaling factor. I do think that the postman is literally the only person who doesn't have like a particular kind of issue or anything like that. He's just, I think he just represents the like humanity like that we have to deal with on a day to day basis, kind of thing. As in the interactions that we have to do with other human beings that we might not know that well, but have to interact with them on a daily basis. It might be kind of confusing and odd
Yeah.
because their way of thinking is different to ours, but not in a kind of like moral or kind of objective, just more kind of like this their thought process is just a little bit more kind of, I guess, out there than what we would conceive. But it's good to see all the characters having different levels of issues, meaning that like no one's perfect. There's no one to kind of like uh, compare Ricky Gervais's character to really.
Yeah.
There is one character who's close to his grief and the way that he goes, but I think that's a very kind of mirror element of the characters. I think he's very much a kind of he's meant to be Ricky Gervais's character, but maybe like with a couple of steps ahead of kind of no hope. I guess, but it's
And
nice to see that. Go ahead.
no, I was going to say, and that's the thing. Yeah, it'd be very easy doing this list to focus on the dark side of any of these comedies, but that's why I'm trying to focus on where the humor is found, because you're right. You know, he's sharing his grief. That's one of the things about this. He's sharing his grief with somebody else who understands grief. That's one of the characters that you're referencing, and that's the message. There is obviously that sharing your grief can help you deal with it, but when he's doing it, he's able to do it in such an open and funny way that not only is it making you laugh, but it's quickly getting across the point. And comedy, for since the start of human existence, has been a way to communicate. It's been a way to say the hard things when they're too hard to say. That's why you make a joke when you're uncomfortable. It's one of it is the universal language that isn't math. It's the other end of the universal language spectrum. It's when your emotions need a way to get themselves across. And I think Afterlife is not on its own, but it's certainly one of the few. Paul, to kind of finish it out, I'm going to bring up his dog. The idea of companionship and what's left from before. Not that the dog plays a key role. I'm not saying watch this show because the dog changes everything, but they don't leave anything out. They don't leave anything out about how he feels, what he would feel as far as guilt goes, what he's missing, what everything means to him. It doesn't pull back from the darkness at any point, but at no point does it wallow in the darkness. So I think it's definitely a comedy. It will make you laugh. And it will bring you on the journey of grief with somebody. And you'll come out the other side with them too. And for that, I think it's a show worth watching.
Yeah, I definitely agree there. The part where it has a little bit of the resilience of hope, it definitely shows kind of how humans can endure such a pain, such an emotional pain, which is and find the humor in there, and then also maybe finding through that humor other sources of strength and connection to move on.
That's it.
Kind of thing. One of the great characters. So,
yep. Afterlife, 2 thumbs up. It's not going to make you sad, folks. It's not going to keep you sad. It'll make you sad along the way, but it'll lift you up. So definitely worth watching on Netflix for, I think, the entire globe. I don't think that's geographically locked. So that was Afterlife. And up next is Upload. Upload, Paul, I'm going to give you the synopsis again. This is about somebody dying. So this is about the afterlife again. But it's about the idea that you can go to a digital heaven. So instead of dying and shuffling off the mortal coil and going wherever you go, you're actually, depending on your financial circumstances, you get to have your consciousness uploaded. So there's now digital heaven, where if you are a person of the right means, you get to have the best experience. So work hard to make sure that you can buy a good afterlife and be uploaded to it. Weirdly, the comedy is pretty obvious there as to what that all means, but the setup here is that this guy, not only is there questionable circumstances around his death, but he is, let's say, uploaded and is then beholden to the person who paid for his upload to this lovely place, and has ends up having romantic feelings for his human handler, so the person who's back in the real world, being his assistant. And you can see I've pulled up, he's rating somebody 5 stars. They really do have a wonderful go at everything that is modern society when it comes to social media and e-commerce in particular. E-commerce gets roasted in this fairly serious subject, is given a lot of lightheartedness because we just know that capitalism can ruin anything, or at least get its sticky fingers into everything.
yeah, so I think one of the I haven't seen this one as much, but it seems like it also explores kind of classism and inequality,
Oh yeah.
kind of thing of what you're saying there, of someone being beholden to pay. Also, it seems like you have to be rich enough to be able to do this, kind of thing. So it seems like it explores kind of classism and inequality. Obviously, grief and loss. It's definitely going to do, kind of thing. It also probably talks about a little bit more of the free will. Obviously, with technology, it always talks about free will and choice, kind of thing. So it seems like an interesting one of just like, yeah, that whole pay or have a good afterlife
Yeah,
is an interesting line.
it's weird. And you know, Paul, the funny here, like you will laugh, and there are cast of zany characters, and there's all sorts of stuff, but there's a bunch of subplots going on. So it's, you know, it's trying to half take itself seriously while you're laughing. But it also does, you know, it brings up the questions of, well, is it right to digitally extend your life? Are you really extending your life? What's the nature of a soul? Is it your understanding of what's going on around you? So like it deals with the bigger topics, but because of the central premise of how horrible the idea of having a financially motivated business. I'm not looking at you, Mark Zuckerberg, or anything. You know, I'm not taking a swipe at Meta and the metaverse or anything, and I really haven't. But you can see some of the weird side of a bunch of people all living out their lives on somebody else's, you know, cloud storage area. It raises moral questions as well, and it pokes a load of fun at the answers to those moral questions.
Yeah, it seems like when if you upload your consciousness to a cloud system, it definitely brings up the meaning of life and consciousness and stuff like that.
Yep.
So it's a good kind of, and then yeah, the morality about actually being able to be a company that actually preys on mortality, essentially.
Yeah, and the fact that if you don't have the proper package, you may be dealing with pop-up ads all the way through your afterlife, Paul. Isn't that scary? I feel like that's my current life. So yeah, not good.
Get ad blocker, man.
Yeah, ad blocker for the afterlife. That's what Upload season 5 will be about. Okay, so that was Upload. Up next, MASH. Oh, Paul, I love MASH. I grew up on MASH. The 4077 means a lot to me. It's also a show that's come up in a few of our other videos. If anybody wants to go and see our greatest endings of TV shows of all time, MASH gets a mention for very, very good reason. But we're not going to spoil the ending. We're going to talk about it in general. Paul, MASH, what does it mean to you?
So MASH, yeah. So MASH is a TV show about essentially a field hospital, which was during the is it the Korean War, yeah. Which is and the characters that are kind of interacting with people coming into the hospital, the war itself, themes of what's happening at home and everything like that. So it kind of plays off a lot of things, but it always does it through the lens of comedy. A lot of the kind of characters are a lot more kind of humorous and stuff like that. They can see the light side of the world and everything. But the themes that this kind of goes through is like which is humanity in the face of adversity. You know, these guys are doctors, they're surgeons, they're trying to save lives, you know, during a war kind of thing. So it definitely shows the humanity at these kind of times of kind of like absolute horribleness and kind of showing the trauma of war and everything like that. So that's one of the major themes to it is that kind of humanity.
It's a hell of a thing for a comedy to try and tackle, but tackle it they do. And they, you know, they don't miss an opportunity to take all of it. So there'll be certain humor in this that won't be for everyone. But to say that there are multiple styles of humor in this is also probably true. A field hospital during a war, an active war. So this is not a safe place. A lot of this humor is driven by the absurdity of the situation, which has been done before in movies when it comes to war. This was a TV show based on a movie that really, really did take the premise. You've got Alan Alda doing his best Groucho Marx in the middle of an operating theatre at times. There will be innuendo, there'll be innuendo, there'll be all sorts of endos. It's forgive me for that, I couldn't resist. There's going to be every joke that they can squeeze out of it, but also they build characters, they respect the characters enough to give them emotional centers, and it's fair to say that this is one of those shows that will make you laugh a lot, but you may have the odd tear also. Particularly if you watch it for a long time, you will find that some of their episodes are much more frivolous than others. But you get into a groove with these people, and it is that cast of characters, that camaraderie, the bond, the union, that, you know, even something as simple as somebody leaving to go home which is a joyous thing and we'll have many, many laughs about it, is tinged with sadness. So if this whole episode is about boxing, velvet boxing gloves, this is one of those things. It's a boxing velvet glove, as I was about to say.
Yeah, MASH is a very good way of kind of being able to look at the harsher kind of themes of war and what those entail through a very funny lens, kind of thing, which makes it a lot more impactful. So you're kind of, I would say that once again on our scale, it'd be more to the lighter comedy side of things, but it doesn't take away from when it actually makes the harsher kind of themes coming up a lot more impactful. Because these are people who you kind of get used to them kind of joking and laughing and stuff like that. And then when a serious theme comes around, which is you're kind of like, this isn't usual for these characters. So it impacts you a lot more through the story, which is just a great way. MASH is probably one of the great templates of that comedy show that is taking on serious and deep kind of themes.
Yep. Make you cry, make you think, make you laugh, in that order or any other order at all. So that was MASH, a show based on a movie, but a show that went on longer than the war it was based on. All right, and next up is Derek, again available on Netflix. So Ricky Gervais does his thing where he is able to deal with heavy topics and make them funny, as in make it something that you can laugh along with, not laugh at. There's nothing about Derek that is pointing fingers and laughing down. Derek, Paul, to describe it and give a synopsis of what it is about, really Derek, the main character, is somebody who, has a childlike quality as a grown man, but is working and is helping out in a care home for the elderly. That sounds pretty dark and pretty serious, because it is. So it's about those people that society kind of judges on all the wrong criteria, Derek and the residents alike. Luckily, in this particular place, not only does it have Derek, who is very, very sweet, but also very, very funny. And sometimes the funniest things in the world are pointing out the obvious. So he has that filter or lack of filter that can make him very, very funny at times. But also some of the oddball characters that also work and help out there. So you've got some sleazy kind of racist-y types. You've got the old stereotype of some elderly people being racist. You've got some, you've got some things that might fly close to the wire for a lot of people, but it's never done in a negative way. Like I say, it's the direction it punches is horizontal or above at all times. And those odd but nice cast of characters around Derek, Paul, make this work. I think this is one of those things where the writing is a huge part of it, but having written such oddball characters played by an oddball cast, it can allow there to be space for comedy in such a serious zone.
Yeah, it seems like it's kind of one of those shows that, like, it doesn't shy away from kind of reality in the sense of these people exist, but there might not be any harm in them. And though it doesn't have any harm in it, so it can open itself to kind of some humorous moments kind of thing. So that seems like a kind of a good theme of kind of acceptance and compassion and optimism that some of the characters might be able to portray. Two characters that might not be fully kind of cognizant in the sense of it being a kind of a retirement home. So.
Yeah. Which is, again, if you write it well enough, it can work. If you act it well enough, it'll definitely work. And it's written well enough and acted well enough. But, and I'm fair warning for anybody who's going to watch it based on this recommendation, you're going to find at some point that it'll accidentally point at you and you won't realize that you were one of the ones that walked in with a preconceived notion of certain types of people. And that's where the genius lies. Because good comedy, Paul, really good comedy, that's what it does. Really good comedy helps express emotions and show you parts of the world that are hard to look at, but also has a little mirror in its pocket now and again to just whip it up and show you, hey, talking about you too. We're not all just sitting on a mountaintop here looking down on everyone. You're part of society. So heck of a cast, heck of a load of fun. And I got to say, If there's one thing I'd recommend watching that people sometimes go, oh, I don't know, is it a bit too heavy for me? I think Derek is one of the ones I'd say, give it a go. You won't be disappointed.
It seems like a more kind of middle ground one. Unlike probably a lot of other Ricky Gervais stuff, it seems like it's more kind of a middle ground kind of one in our list. Where we have more goofy, more comedic kind of leaning ones, and then the more kind of serious ones. This one kind of falls nicely in the middle.
Yep. And that was Derek. Check it out on Netflix. Again, I think worldwide. Sorry if it's geo-locked in your location.
Yeah, and now on to our honorable mentions. So we have an honorable mention of 6 Feet Under, which is a HBO show, which deals with essentially grief and loss and everything like that through the lens of the Fisher family, who run a funeral home. The start of it is essentially that a member of the family has passed away, and this brings the family kind of back together in different forms, and it starts playing off kind of what loss of this parents kind of does to the family, and it goes through grief and loss. And obviously they run a funeral home, so they also have to deal with like the nature of death and kind of family dynamics with everybody coming back, grief and loss, but they do it through a funny humor and satire kind of way, which is great. And then obviously they also have to deal with kind of some crazy ethical kind of ethical morality kind of choices,
which is always fertile ground for dark humor.
Yeah, especially setting a place in a funeral home of all places, a place that none of us really want to work in a lot. So like, it's a great kind of like already setting of a very human place, but synonymous with kind of life and death, grief and loss and stuff. But they do it very, very well, and the characters kind of interacting with each other is very funny. Which is to the son who has returned because of the passing of the parents, who kind of is the black sheep, with the rest of the characters who stayed and kind of tried to build up the family kind of home and everything. So,
and this is one I haven't seen a whole lot of, Paul, but I know that there's obviously there's love and there's loss, because there's definitely loss obviously, but there's love because there's that in all of these shows. But yeah, I do know enough to know that there is a definite vein of dark humor running through all of their scenarios, and a lot of their interactions. And I think some of the situations even. So, yeah, this one is so highly regarded and highly respected by so many people. It's over 20 years old, I think. And it's one of those things that you don't get to be this well respected after the fact, unless you were really good.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of those. It stemmed quite a large amount of shows afterwards. It's definitely got other shows who take on kind of more serious, but through a humor lens, a comedic lens, definitely have some element of its DNA in it, kind of thing. So.
Yeah, no, it's definitely on my watch list, along with about 10,000 other shows, unfortunately. But it's on my watch list to get through, get back to. And hey, we're doing a whole episode about dark comedies, Paul. I don't think something that can bring humor to a funeral home or a funeral director's is one that we could leave off the list without an honorable mention.
No, not at all. Yeah, some of the humor is literally just locations in which they're talking. Like, you know, they're talking about somewhere, like, you know,
yeah,
there's a scene where someone's burns food, like burns the dinner, but the other one has their hands in a body. And it's just like, you know, oh, I've burnt the chicken or I burnt the dinner, and they're just like, oh, have you really? Well, you better, you know. And it's just while they're working on someone, and you're just like, the situation doesn't match the conversation here, kind of thing.
There's definite absurd satire going on. Well, that's awesome. So 6 Feet Under, our honorable mention on this list.
So yeah, we talked a lot about kind of serious themes, kind of done through the lens or kind of the vehicle of comedy, and I think that me and Patrick can both say that comedy is such a powerful tool to be able to explore these subject matters. of being Irish, especially, I would say that we have a very kind of a unique view of certain dark kind of subject matters, in the sense that Ireland's very much, Irish people very much see the dark comedy in a lot of stuff.
Oh, gallows humor is our thing.
Yeah, so
sure.
like, and I think that it's a very powerful kind of thing to be able to explore these themes through comedy and everything, because like we go through, a lot of people go through these things. We're all going to go through grief and loss and a lot of the themes here, but having that sense of humor and that light at the end of the tunnel kind of things is very important. I think these shows together all bring that together.
Yep. I think the comedy's the vehicle that best deals with heavy emotion. So honestly, I think the skill needed to make any of these shows is off the charts. And to prove that, I am going to end this episode, Paul, by asking anybody out there who hasn't liked, subscribed, and shared yet, do that. But after you've done all that, get in the comments. It's very difficult. We've given 6 TV shows that fit the criteria of being comedies that actually, while making you laugh, are dealing with some heavy, heavy subjects at their core. Now, not just one-off episodes or disparate things, being, as a setting, a heavy situation. If you know of any more or any better ones than we've picked, I really want to hear them in the comments down below. So that is your call to action right now. Obviously, subscribe on the way by and hit a like. But get into the comments. Let us know what we've missed, or let us know what you think of the picks and what fond memories you maybe have of them. Paul, I think there's been so many movies that are able to do this. It's so much more difficult to do it in a serialized TV show or in a TV show of any kind. So fair play to the people on our list.
Yeah, I think marathoning these kind of themes constantly on a day, like, you know, on a episode by episode basis without losing the audience in what I can only say is possible fatigue.
Yeah.
And, you know, fatigue of these themes is very good. It's very skillful, very amazing. So get into the comments, let us know what you think of the list, and yeah.
And with that, I've been Patrick.
And I've been Paul.
And we've been Here Aside. And we will see you next time. Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.